Ew. Gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why.
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors. It helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.
It's an interesting point you make using the word preferred, because that's the beauty of the English language. Would you prefer that I yell in your ear or touch your eyeball? You know?
Yeah.
9 out of 10 people preferred me touching their eyeball.
It's way better than a trip to the proctologist.
Welcome to this podcast. This is episode 34. My name is Timothy and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined as usual by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hey, how's it going?
And I'm also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
I'm supposed to say how's it going, Jonathan. Come on, that's Jaime's thing.
Oh, sorry. Let me try again. What's up, eh?
What's up, eh? What's going on?
Sorry, is
hosers?
that more suitably Canadian for you?
I guess. I don't know. It's sort of like, no, actually, what would be suitably Canadian? I mean, you could call people hosers for sure.
What's a poutine, eh?
What would Bob and Doug McKenzie say when they're greeting each other?
Good day, eh? And welcome to Spotcast.
Yeah, good day, eh? Welcome to Spotcast. That's perfect. All right. And I think Wayne's World probably did the same thing, right?
Yeah, something like that.
All righty. Well, let's dig in. So we have some fact checking. I think Jonathan's got the fact check this week. So have at you.
All right. Well, I'm going to start at 5:30 of episode 30.
0.2. Oh, that's me.
That's
Sorry.
you. You want to do that one?
Yeah, I don't know why I put 0.2. It was right. I guess it was right at the beginning of the show. 2 minutes in.
2 minutes in? Okay.
Yeah, the detective I was talking about in Gotham is Jim Gordon, who eventually becomes Commissioner Gordon, which is he's playing the role as a young cop.
Right.
I forgot that when we were talking because I haven't watched the show in a while. But
yep.
And Jonathan points out that he did say Gordon in the episode, and that's what I heard, but I didn't hear Commissioner Gordon. So or Jim Gordon, I guess. Right? Anyway, so carry on with your
no problem. So 5:30 in, we were talking about Resident Evil Apocalypse, part of it being filmed here, using our beloved Toronto City Hall, and yes, can confirm it was the second of the 6 film series. We weren't sure which one it was in the order there, so I looked that up.
Why would you call it Apocalypse if it's the second film?
Because I think they're all apocalyptic in their way.
Oh, I guess. Okay. All right. Carry on.
About 30 minutes in, we were talking about the new disco t-shirt, and that is the Command Training Program t-shirt, the one with the gold lettering. Is that right?
Right. Yep. A new little insignia, too.
Yeah. Around 40 minutes, we were talking about Majel Barrett, who was, of course, Nurse Chapel in the original. She was the original pilot. She was number 1. That's why we were talking about her, because the new number 1, Rebecca Romaine, was in the episode of Discovery we were talking about last episode. And Majel Barrett, we were trying to figure out how many things she appeared in. So I looked it up. She did appear in the original series, the pilot, the original series, Next Generation. She was, of course, Loxana Troy, Deanna Troy's mom.
And the computer, too, right?
Yeah, and the computer, right? She did the computer voice. And then in DS9, she was Loxana and the computer voice. And she was Nurse Chapel in the cartoon series.
Right.
The 1970s cartoon series. But I looked it up to sort of see, because I was curious as to if they had used her voice, because I couldn't remember what the computer sounded like on Discovery. I don't think we've had a lot of interactions with the computer. But apparently the computer is being voiced by Tassia Valencia, who once appeared on the first season episode of TNG, episode 19, which is the one where they go back to the planet, they go back to Earth, and the weird alien monsters are inside the Admiralty, and Remick is there, and very memorable first season episode for being bizarro. Anyway, she played Tchanik, who was Vulcan in that episode, and her previous Star Trek claim to fame, and now she is the computer voice in
I was
Discovery.
saying it would be kind of cool if who was it? Oh, number 1 was
Rebecca Romaine was the computer voice, but apparently it's this woman instead.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
112 of the last episode, we were talking about Phantom Menace and the trailer and the hype around the trailer when it first appeared. So I looked up the details, and Phantom Menace debuted originally on three films. It was on The Waterboy, an Adam Sandler comedy. It was on Meet Joe Black, the Brad Pitt drama, and it was on the Bruce Willis thriller The Siege. And apparently it was on those exclusively for the first 3 days, and then it rolled out across North America and Canada, North America wide, on a few days later. So it was apparently this piece about I think it was Den of Geek did a great piece that I was reading. They were talking about how crazy it was that people were going to see these movies and just watching the trailer and then getting up and leaving because they weren't allowed to get refunds. So the movies like Meet Joe Black had these hugely inflated ticket sales, but people were like going in and there was nobody left in the theater after the first 5 minutes.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I looked it up because I do remember, because I used to go to movies all the time with my buddy Ken, and I remember them telling us as we were buying our ticket that you won't be able to get a refund if you leave. And I was pretty sure it was Wing Commander that I saw. Was it 1999 when because as I said, Wing Commander was the video game movie with Freddie Prinze Jr. Yep. And it was horrible. Starring
the movie definitely came out in 99. I'm unclear when the first trailer came out though.
For the Phantom Menace, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it came out earlier in that year.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that's actually one of my favorite Star Wars trailers, because that's the one where you have the mists and those creatures crawling out or walking out of the mist.
Oh yeah, it was. I remember the trailers so much more memorably than the movie. I remember thinking like, wow, this trailer really has got me excited. But yeah, it's unfortunate that it didn't have quite the staying power as a film. Mm-hmm. And our last bit of fact check from last episode, in the watch list, we had said, what's this? Age of Persuasion? Can't remember what you were referring to.
That's me. Yeah. Oh, this is my actual comment. Yeah, I always say the Age of Persuasion. So Terry O'Reilly had 2 shows. He did the Age of Persuasion first for a couple of seasons, and then he changed the format slightly. The show's practically the same thing, and it's now called Under the Influence. So I always make the mistake of calling it Age of Persuasion when it's actually called Under the Influence.
And this is the CBC show / podcast?
Yes, exactly. All right, so let's dig into the headlines then. And Jaime, you go first.
All right. Well, it was announced that Ultraviolet, the digital streaming and download service, would be going away. You have until July 31st to preserve your libraries through alternative means. And the second link we'll have for those of you transporting at home is how to safeguard your library, which is apparently very easy if you're in the US of A, because you can just use movies anywhere and have that. I was unaware that still to this day, this is USA only for Movies Anywhere, the service. Yep. So apparently you may or may not have options like, looks like Fandango Now, Vudu, Kaleidoscope, Verizon Fios. I didn't even know they offered that. Kaleidoscape and Paramount, I guess, has its own thing. Do any of those apply to the Canadian audience?
I don't think so. For mine, I get them through an app called Flickster. I don't know if you're familiar with Flickster. I think it's an American app, but it used to be for just checking out film times and film reviews and stuff, but they started up this Flickster video thing. So it really annoys me. I've ranted with Jonathan about this in the past, that you go and buy a disc, like even Blade Runner 2049 is in this situation, and so is my Batman, the whole Batman series. It's stuck inside this, like the only way I can watch it is using this Flickster app on my phone or my iPad, but I can't I can't put it somewhere. I would love it if they would just convert it into iTunes and be done with it, because that's where all my other movies are, right?
Yep. So I'm the same way. Mm-hmm. I have a pile of movies that are Ultraviolet, all of which you can watch through Flickster right now, and I'm curious to see what happens through that, because they all seem to still work through there. There is, looking it up, Warner Brothers released an app not long ago where you could watch the Warner movies that you have downloaded through your collection through Ultraviolet on their app. So really? I know I can watch. Canada? Yes, in Canada. I know I can watch some of the DC live action films that I have and cartoons that I have in Ultraviolet on there, and I know I can watch. I think I have a couple of maybe Harry Potters or something. So some of those that are like Warner Brothers films, you can actually enter your link to your account and watch them through that. I don't know if that's continuing or if that's that's a service that's going to be discontinued because of its connection to Ultraviolet. But it is a real pain in the butt because it is annoying to have a split collection and not be able to have the kind of aggregation like you do with Movies Anywhere in the United States.
So why is Ultraviolet going away, though? They're just running out of money or something? Or
can't compete with Apple?
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember. I don't recall. I think, competition as a natural thing is starting to cause some of these to fall by the wayside, and Disney's coming onto the scene, so that's going to cause a lot of pressure for some of these streaming services.
Yeah, there's a couple other players in the market that weren't there before, because Apple was always the big one with iTunes, but now, and I noticed this it was at Christmas time, I got a couple of movies on 4K Blu-ray, and they were ones that previously, so I got Deadpool, the original Deadpool movie, when it came out on regular Blu-ray disc 2 years ago, and it had a download code that was for iTunes through Fox, but then Deadpool 2 came out, and I got that one around Christmas time, and it had a download code for Google Play.
Oh, really?
And it was, I think it was one of 2 or 3 movies I've gotten over the last little while that has transferred from being Apple to Google Play, and I think they're all Fox movies now that I think of it. I think it was all things that previously I would have gotten through Apple that have shifted over to Google Play, and I know that there's some other things that only work through Amazon's player now too. So iTunes, Amazon, and Google Play have sort of taken over the market, and I think Ultraviolet just was becoming, I think especially losing license support by places like Fox Studios, I think that's just the end for them, right?
Oh, that could be why, yeah. I mean, I have to blame the film studios for choosing, they must have to choose the company that's going to publish their goods, right?
Absolutely.
And I guess now when Disney buys Fox and, blah, 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 buy so-and-so, that's what happens. But I want to take a sidebar for a second and ask you about these 4K, because I did notice that you were buying 4K Blu-rays, because I borrow them from you time to time, right?
Yes.
But so are these meant to, do you have to have a 4K, I guess you have to have a 4K player to play those, right? Do you have one, or are you just investing in the future?
No, I do. When I purchased my, I bought a bundle because unfortunately both of my television sets died simultaneously. So last year, my son and I went out looking for a deal to replace both of our television sets. And since we were buying 2 television sets, the nice person at the electronics shop that we went to threw us in a 4K player at cost. So we actually it was like, not much, it was like $90 or something like that for a 4K player. It's a Samsung, it's very nice. And so I am still a little dubious on the whole culture of digital content ownership, and I think this is a perfect illustration as we talk about Ultraviolet.
Right, yeah.
You own it, but you don't. You own the right to download it. That's what you own. You only own the right to download it. You do not own the right to stream it ad infinitum. And so the real answer is that in spite of the millennial instinct to not own a physical copy of anything short of, I don't know what, a vinyl record, if you want to have something and collect something, you have to have a physical copy of it still, because that other stuff is ephemeral.
Nebulous.
Yes.
Ethereal.
So I am still of the mindset that there are some things, and for me it's often science fiction movies, things that I will want to watch in the best possible quality that exists for the foreseeable, I will say, 8 years that the technology that it exists on exists. And so I don't mind buying a copy of whatever, Star Wars or Deadpool or any of the Marvel cinematic movies or whatever it is, and enjoying it at its best possible quality. Especially because I tend to shop, I go look around for deals and stuff like that. So I try not to spend full freight, because some of these 4K discs are crazy expensive. But it just, the fact that this is happening is not surprising to me, and it's infuriating, because I think I probably have a good 20 plus movies on Ultraviolet. And now what? Like, so then they're just gone? Like, I paid for that, it's not a freebie, it's not a throw-in, it's part of the cost. And, I would like to be able to say, yeah, it's great that you're going away. Can I please have a download code for one of your competitor services so I can continue to enjoy my digital movies, please? Yeah,
I like to get off my lawn claws too from time to time and say, like, I like to have tangible goods. I mean, that's a thing too, right? And because I'm coming up on my 30th year using a Mac, and it just burns my butt that I can't deal with the data that I created 30 years ago, right? Yeah. Like, I have file formats and stuff like that on the Mac, because back in the day, Mac didn't have file extensions and stuff like that. I have to have an old, archaic Mac in order to open those files up and then hopefully convert them into something that I can use in future. And the same thing goes with, all of our we don't have a VHS player in the house anymore. I think, well, we have maybe one. Or no, I think we took it at the cottage and just walked away from it. But yeah, so we had to get rid of all our VHS tapes because, even though they're movies that never made it onto DVD or what have you, over time this stuff gets lost. And I call it the Bruce Willis clause with the iTunes thing because he took on Apple about the fact that he can't give his kids his collection of movies when he passes, right? Mm-hmm. And he made a big stink about it. And that's when it was kind of revealed around that time that you actually don't own the movie. You're licensing it, if you will, right?
Well, and the reality is you can download them and put them on a server and somebody can watch them as long as they have your ID, but then Apple would tell you that that's unscrupulous because it's not yours. It belongs to someone else. I'll leave it open to people's interpretations whether that's true or not. But I think it's unscrupulous that you can't, if something you own that you can't transfer. If I can download it, then don't I own that copy? No, because that's not what you purchased.
Yeah. Same thing with me. Like I bought the First Man disc or First Man movie on iTunes, but I can't lend it to you to watch it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to come to my house and watch it.
And that's still the plus of the physical disc, is if you have somebody who you regularly interact with, you can say, here, watch this. Again, I still get our municipal library system here in Mississauga is exceptional. They get, brand new Blu-ray movies in, and you can reserve them and you can watch them. I watch movies from the library all the time. That is a perk. I mean, obviously my tax money goes towards that, but you can actually get reasonably good modern new movies and enjoy them because you can actually take out the physical copy and enjoy it. Those kind of things are fleeting, it seems.
Yeah, it's exactly. I forgot about that. Yeah. Well, speaking of digital content, Jaime, how is Hulu going to ruin our lives now?
But people prefer this, according to their statement, which I have a lot of thoughts about. So apparently Hulu is going to show users ads when videos are paused. Apparently they tested both video ads as well as static, basically JPEG type ads. And their statement here says, our pause ad research found that consumers generally preferred ads that were subtle and non-intrusive, and that extensive audio and video when pausing was considered disruptive. I don't think that's accurate. I'm pretty sure they hated it less, if I were to guess. Nobody really likes the ads. I mean, even the picture here, they're going to be working with Coca-Cola and Charmin first. And I mean, at least it's sort of thematically on point, I guess. I don't know what's behind the screen here, but it looks like it could be something scary. And so, yes, you might need a break and enjoy the go over Charmin. I mean, just crapped your pants from the scary part of the movie. I'm a little less clear how Coca-Cola works, but sure. I mean, I think it's terrible. I mean, it feels inevitable because, the money is there. I fully expect this to be on the lower tiers. It will eventually make its way to the premium tiers, I'm sure. I feel like I'm just yelling at the wind about it.
But it's an interesting point you make using the word preferred, because that's the beauty of the English language. Would you prefer that I yell in your ear or touch your eyeball?
Yeah.
9 out of 10 people preferred me touching their eyeball.
It's way better than a trip to the proctologist.
That's true. Well, some people might enjoy that, though. I prefer it.
Yeah. So I don't really have much that we can really do about this other than voting with your dollars. If enough people, and it takes more than just one, enough people to say, hey, this is terrible, let's not do this, let's move on to other things.
That doesn't work. People get elected into office that shouldn't be elected into office because, people think, it's not my vote's not going to matter. People like quitting Facebook and all that doesn't matter to hill of beans,
Yes, that is true. When you get to that scale, it becomes just, they call it CAC, cost of customer acquisition. And I think, you can't do tons about that. It's more of a start shoving your dollars towards whoever you feel is not abusing this privilege. Like, I don't know, maybe Netflix, maybe Amazon.
That being said, though, we joke all the time about the glut of streaming services that are being rammed down, particularly your throat living in America, Jaime. You may start actually making those decisions based on, the convenience, inconvenience, or frustration you experience in how you interact with them. I mean, we have two primary services here in Canada that are Netflix, obviously, and Crave, which is HBO Now. I think that's what they call it in the States. HBO Go, HBO Go.
There's both, and I think one is the online only streaming service, and one is the companion to having the cable subscription.
Well, in this case, you kind of get best of both because you can watch it on your TV or you can watch it on your device. All the back catalog of HBO plus HBO Live. So it's pretty good, but the flip side of that is that the interface for it is not good. It's not a good interface. Like how you find things, how you search for things. It's not as intuitive as some of the other experiences I've had.
In the App Store for sure.
It's not well done. They do have amazing content, and for the price, it's actually quite a good deal, and would be a bargain by anyone's reckoning. But if you can't find what you're looking for because the way that its architecture works, then is it really that great a service? And I think again, you vote with your dollars. If you have 6 or 7 streaming services and one of them infuriates you because you can't find what you're looking for, are you going to keep that service?
It's a good question. I think just voting with your dollars. It's the best way that we can do this sort of stuff.
Like I said, I'm doubtful of that being a tactic that works.
I mean, I think maybe if you start a Facebook group of like,
oh, that'll help too. Yeah,
this is the Godzilla King of the Monsters theory of how to deal with these giants, is to pit them against each other, and take out the winner once they've been weakened.
Yeah.
From now on, Hulu will be known as Mothra.
Yeah, I think only Elon Musk can take on, who's the guy that owns Virgin Airlines?
Branson?
Branson? Yeah, only Elon Musk can take on Branson. Yeah. That's the only fight that's worth having or watching, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're like, the zombies in Tammy's favorite movie, World War Z?
God, that's her favorite movie?
That's like, no, she hates it.
Oh, good, because it's terrible.
But the zombies running up against the wall and all piling on top of each other, that's a bit pretty much your analogy in like a sort of a real form, right?
Yeah.
Where Facebook is the wall sort of thing, or where you're voting with your dollars, right? Anyway, let's move on. What's happening with Star Wars?
Well, this article sort of starts out with the reminder that the Disneyland and Disney World expansions to their respective theme parks, called Galaxy's Edge, which apparently depict the planet Batu. I don't know if they've ever said that anywhere, so I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Batu. And there will be a tie-in book, Black Spire, which will apparently be about General Leia trying to dispatch her top spy in a desperate search for resistance allies. So presumably this is post The Last Jedi, I would guess. And there's also talk of a young adult's novel, Clash of Fate, but a young boy named Jules, that's an interesting name, who grows up in Batu. So it seems like this will be a key sort of place. I kind of wonder if it will, hypothetical spoilers will be for episode 9. Who knows? But, it's going to be a long trip to get to Disneyland or Disney World. I think in the summer and fall, respectively. Don't quote me on that because I probably have it wrong. But you're probably taking a train or a plane or possibly an automobile.
That's why we have fact check, right?
Yeah, that's why we have fact check. But, pick up one of these books and then, read it while you're commuting there or traveling there.
All right. Oh, look, it's my turn. So Terminator 6, it's coming out. And, boo? Boo. Yeah. Apparently Arnold's going to be in it.
Oh, good.
And it's taking a completely different form. It's throwing away the last 2 movies and just starting off again. This is James Cameron, of course, behind this.
Can it throw away the last 3 movies?
Huh?
Can it please throw away the last 3 movies?
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's getting rid of the everything. This is a follow-up to Terminator 2, I believe, right?
Great.
Anyway, apparently Linda Hamilton's coming back to play Sarah Connor somehow in her walker, with her walker and her shawl.
Oh, hope you meet Linda Hamilton.
Met her once, but there you go.
Yep.
All right.
I just broke the seal on that one with my 15-year-old son the other day. We sat down and watched the original Terminator.
Oh, yeah?
He enjoyed the movie very much, but a couple times he was like, man, this is not a high-quality picture.
No.
Yes. Well, in 1983 it was, so,
Well, my introduction to the Terminator was Terminator 2, actually. I didn't watch the original Terminator until I saw Terminator 2, so.
Yeah.
And I didn't see Terminator 2 in the theater at all.
Terminator 2, that was such a good movie theater movie.
Yeah. Well, because, I already knew about morphing and all that kind of stuff already, but
yeah.
Anyway. So speaking of, this is kind of follow-up as well as headline stuff here, but apparently we just missed it, but Al Reinert, who's the director who made the movie For All Mankind, which I was going on about last week, there's a post here on Criterion.com. He died in January 4th, actually, at the age of 71. So there's a post here about him and the making of the movie and all that kind of stuff. So it's Alan Reinert. And you'll be excited to see that the Disney Aladdin trailer is out with Will Smith as the genie. And all I got to say is, what?
And you'll never sleep again if you see it.
Be, right?
It's creepy. It's creepy as hell.
Yeah, because I know. It ruins the whole Robin Williams genie, which was just over the top, right? And I got to see the Pikachu trailer the other day. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet.
We saw it a while back.
Oh, did you? Okay, well, I hadn't watched it because I saw it as part of a conglomeration of movies coming out this summer, but so I had no frame of reference. But yeah, it's basically the kid got this ability to understand what Pikachu is saying, because all other people hear is Pikachu, Pikachu, Pikachu. So he hears Ryan Reynolds, or maybe he's channeling Deadpool or something. But yeah, he hears Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu's voice. So you guys had seen the trailer already?
Yeah, it's bat crap crazy. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's kind of like Happy with Pikachu, right?
Yes, but everyone can see the Pikachu. They just can't hear the Pikachu.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, like, words fail me. It's just so weird. It's just so weird. I can't believe it's a thing. And beyond that, we already talked about the fact they've already commissioned a sequel and it hasn't even come out yet. Like, I can't even.
The Detective Pikachu cinematic universe is
my God.
Surely something we'll be talking about one day.
I have to go lie down.
the Kelvin timeline of the
you're telling me there's
Pikachu
been 20
universe.
movies already? It seems like just yesterday it started.
Yeah.
All right, Jaime?
Well, I guess keeping in the theme of movies, we've got the Captain Marvel retro website that has come out, and it reminds me of the good old days in 98, 99 probably, when you used to have hit counters and guest books, and there were things like info and media that you might click on a actually it's reasonably well designed actually for that era. It's not as obnoxious as I remember, GeoCities and WebJump and all these other sort of things,
and all the sort of flashy things. By the way, I just want to point out that I still have a hit counter on my website.
Ooh, is it still going up? You didn't roll over?
Roll over to what?
Because I think it would have been like, I don't know, maybe it would have been like the 16 or 32-bit digits, right? That it would roll over to.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'm just trying to think of, JavaScript back in the day.
Yeah.
Or CGI, depending how it was done.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah, it's at the bottom of the IT Guy website. It's because I started that site in 2000, so I just left the hit counter on it. So in the corner.
Yeah.
I have to check it now.
Your site is like actually frozen in time. In this case, I think they just styled it to look sort of time. But I think it's done with modern web technologies, as opposed to the Space Jam website, which is still up to this very day.
Really?
Yeah, in all its marvelous late 90s, early 2000s sort of goodness.
Neat. Have to go look at that. All right. Space Jam. Reminds me of Space Ghost. I used to watch that when I was a kid.
Yeah, we might actually have some listeners who don't know what Space Jam is, because it's old enough that some of our listeners may not know.
Well, our biggest fan probably doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, it was the combination of the greatest player of all time, that would be Michael Jordan, not LeBron James or Steph Curry, whoever you fancy pants new kids believe, in a live-action / animation hybrid with the Looney Tunes characters. That would be Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, those kind of guys.
Yeah, and they are apparently talking about doing a reboot with LeBron James, so...
Yeah.
Because some things just need to get rebooted.
Yeah, it's actually got frames, this website. Crazy. SpaceJam.com. No, I guess it's Warner Brothers Archive, Space Jam, whatever. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, and I think if you do view source and other things, it's still using the older tech, but I assume under the covers somewhere they've put it in a virtual machine or a Docker container or some other sort of thing to keep it running.
Maybe, yeah. It has the .htm extension, right? Which is fun.
Good old .htm versus .html. Remember those days?
Yeah, I was an HTML guy myself because Windows was evil. Yeah.
Oh, it's my turn. So we got news this week that we're losing yet another cast member from The Walking Dead. Danai Gurira, who plays Michonne, is apparently making her exit from the show midway through season 10, which is going to be coming this fall. So we already got news that Andrew Lincoln, of course, has already departed. Lauren Cohan has apparently dropped off the show because she's doing another show and was apparently having contract issues. Now, The Hollywood Reporter has this story, and they say that apparently she's going to, Danai Gurira, that is, going to appear in a limited capacity for season 10, which starts in October. But apparently she has signed a deal to appear in one or more of the 3 Rick Grimes-centric movies that AMC is planning, with Andrew Lincoln spinning off the show. So apparently we have not seen the last of her. However, she is not going to be a series regular once again. So the 2 stars of the show, having lost those 3 and killed off everyone else, will apparently be Daryl, which is Norman Reedus' character, and Carol, Melissa McBride's character. They are going to be the sort of central characters of the show going forward, which just once again hammers home for me why I stopped watching it a while back.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't even make it through the last episode now that you mentioned. I watched it on Sunday when it came out, and I think I stopped watching it halfway through. But so Daryl could just get a motorcycle, and Negan could get another motorcycle, and they could just tour around like they do on, what's the other show that Norman Reedus does? Norman Reedus Rides or something like that.
Oh yeah, the one with the motorcycles. Yeah, what's that called? I remember seeing the commercials for it. I've never seen it. Yeah.
But it's him and what's his name? Harry. What's Negan's real name? Harry Dean Stanton. Is that right?
I don't think so. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
I was so close.
Yes.
There's 3 names.
It's turned it into a zombie Starsky and Hutch sort of buddy show.
Exactly. Yep. Taking out the Whisperers.
Yep. Another piece of news this week, the Star Trek animated series, which we had talked about on a previous episode, apparently is looking like it's zeroing in on a home. This too from the Hollywood Reporter. They say that the kid-centric animated series for Star Trek is near a deal with Nickelodeon. So we had talked about the fact they were looking at a few different future projects, and apparently this one is they're doing that Lower Decks series, which Jaime had mentioned a few episodes back, which is going to be a little more sort of adult-centric. This one is going to be a little more kids-friendly, and I guess they're going to try and draft in a new generation a la Clone Wars, or maybe even younger than that, by going after the Nickelodeon crowd. So interesting Trek news.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say it was stalled in contract talks or something.
No, apparently they're negotiating that, but that looks like where it's going to go. And the other piece I have here is that we a couple more castings. So we talked in the last episode about Dune, this Denis Villeneuve remake or new version of Dune that's coming, which is loading up on stars. We already talked about the fact that they have Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and all these people that have signed on to play all these different parts. Well, this week we got news of one definite more and another one possibly. So Josh Brolin, of course, Cable and Thanos himself, has signed on and will be a part of the cast. And we got news today that Jason Momoa is apparently in talks to be joining the cast as well, coming off of the $1 billion box office hit that is Aquaman. So this movie is apparently throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this cast. So pretty exciting that not only are we getting the visionary that is Denis Villeneuve, and I think we're all fans of his. I think on top of that, it sounds like this cast is going to be stacked top to bottom. So pretty cool.
So I have some news. I watched the 1984 version of Dune just the other day on TV after we talked.
Oh, and how does it hold up?
Well, I understood the story this time a bit more. It wasn't quite as interesting as the book, because the book had played out the sort of mystery of who what's the name of the main guy?
Oh, Atreides.
Atreides. Yeah. How he plays out, in this, and the death of his father and all that kind of stuff, and Baron, and I mean the special effects were sort of the typical green screeny kind of stuff that was so obvious green screen, and the people and the natives of Arrakis had blue eyeballs and stuff like that. Some interesting actors in it, like we talked about Patrick Stewart, but that little lady, I forgot her name now, plays one of the natives in it. And Sting was just I think Sting was right off of Quadrophenia, so there wasn't much acting involved from Sting, right? But yeah, he sort of had that Billy Idol kind of wild look about him. And it was just odd.
Yeah, I mean, again, we talked about David Lynch. David Lynch, obviously a visionary, but also like a little unhinged. That said, like when the good point about the David Lynch bit, it was very much looked like something like Geiger kind of had done the sets. Like, was, from that point of view, it was really well done. But
like very futuristic, and the suits were very futuristic and that kind of stuff. But yeah, just an odd story. I think having read 3/4 of the book, I think the book is much better, obviously, right?
Well, yeah. But yeah, you're even that one. It was a bit of a who's. I think you were looking for Linda Hunt. Is it Linda Hunt that was the little one, the little woman?
Yes, right.
Yes,
yeah.
Linda Hunt. Yeah. I'm just looking through the cast list now, and you just look at it of that era. It's a pretty impressive cast. Kyle MacLachlan and Richard Jordan and Virginia Madsen, and of course Sting. We talked about Sean Young, a young Sean Young, Max von Sydow. Dean Stockwell, Patrick Stewart. Like, there's just quite a cast in there too.
Sean Young was right off. It was like the year after Blade Runner too.
That's right. Yeah.
So cool. All right. Sorry to steal the show. Back to you, Jaime.
Oh, me. So Marvel is going to do a multi-series animated initiative called The Offenders.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with The Defenders. That will be several series landing on Hulu. It's kind of interesting that they're going with these nuttier characters, and the writers will be people that you'll recognize. So the 4 series are going to be Howard the Duck with Kevin Smith and Dave Willis writing. MODOK, M-O-D-O-K.
Yep.
Perhaps one of the weirdest ones of the bunch. It's the giant floating head, if you know the Jack Kirby, Stan Lee style of that era of weirdo characters. There you go. That's who's the writers? Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom. Then Hit Monkey, the first of the characters that I'm not familiar with Will Speck and Josh Gordon. And Tigra, I guess it's maybe there's a I'm going to call it Tigra and Dazzler show. Dazzler, I recognize as being like a 70s, maybe 80s X-Men character, kind of on the fringe. And Tigra, I don't specifically remember, even though she looks very familiar from her character designs, which will have Erica Rivanoja and Chelsea Handler as the writers. Yep. And even the design for Dazzler kind of looks like it could be modeled after Chelsea Handler, now that I look at it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, Tigra was an Avengers character. She was a longtime member of the Avengers in the comic books.
And the video games, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's established. It's a weird... I don't recall the two of them ever being partnered up in any occasion before. Yeah, I mean, I heard this the other day. Patton Oswalt was putting this out on his social the other day, and of course, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan and a Patton Oswalt fan as well. So I'm very, very much in on this. Again, it's a Hulu thing in the United States, but that obviously offers no benefit to us here. We have no idea where this is going to air in Canada. So be curious to see where this all plays out here, because right now it does not seem to have a Canadian home, and this looks too weird to miss.
It's very true. It's like what's going to be next? So Marvel is, Disney via Marvel is largely consolidating things, and Hulu's kind of a weird in between because it's what's the lineage here? Disney via its acquisition of Fox ends up owning a rather large chunk of Hulu, like 2/3. Yes. I think we said at one point.
Yeah, they'll own 2/3.
Yeah. So it seems like they're treating it like their Miramax equivalent, where the kid-friendly stuff goes on Disney Plus, and if we still want your money for more, slightly older, maybe young adults to actual adult type stuff, will be on Hulu, where you don't have little kids thinking, oh, here's this duck. No, don't watch Howard the Duck, kids. It's not Donald Duck. It's not Daffy Duck. It's not for you. It's a little bit more mature.
It does make me wonder about, so they have Freeform too, right? Is Freeform's where they are airing like Cloak and Dagger, and I wonder if those kind of things are going to migrate to like a consolidated place, as you say, if there's going to be sort of different channels for Disney products.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know what's
Runaways
next.
is a Hulu series, right? So Runaways is there, but then Freeform's showing Cloak and Dagger, and then this stuff's going to Hulu, but then some of the stuff they've got in progress is going to Disney Plus. I wonder if at some point they're going to start sort of trying to figure out, as you say, if there's like tiers, like, the 4 to 12, the 13 to 24, and the 24 plus or something.
Yeah.
And clearly none of it's going to be on Netflix anymore.
Yeah, I think that battle line has been drawn. They're slowly canceling or ending every sort of contract they have with Netflix. So vote with your dollars, folks. If you want to see the reunion of Chris Pratt and Anna Faris starring as Jubilee and Galactus as they pair up on their merry adventures. Yeah. Vote with your dollars.
Yep.
All right.
Frozen 2, yes. I'd be shocked if you're listening to this episode and somehow did not know. This was like on the nightly news locally. It was like, hey, remember Frozen? One of the, most successful movies.
Too soon to say let it go.
At least, people were looking at the downsides. I'd say, look, at least when your child listens or watches on an endless loop, you won't hear the same movie more than every, hour and a half. So it gives you a little bit more variety to the playlist. But this teaser trailer is actually kind of weird because it's kind of more dark and moody, with Elsa on the beach trying to Iceman her way over to somewhere else. It's really unclear what her goal is, whether to cross or to get to a specific point. But definitely seems like it's not focusing on the happy fun time parts of the movie.
Interesting. All right. So the last one here I have is a piece I just found actually while I was watching the show earlier. I don't know if you heard our rant, but Rogers messed up my Rogers messed up my PVR experience today. So I had to actually sit through commercials. So while I was while the commercials were playing, I found this article on what is Section 31, and it's interesting because Section 31 is one of these things that we know, or we may not know, that it doesn't officially exist. And of course, Philippa Georgiou and Ash Tyler are part of it. And I think what's her name, Admiral blah blah blah
Cornwell.
Admiral Cornwell is also part of it. But it turns out that Section 31 has actually been in or mentioned in other versions of Star Trek as well, right? So it was not mentioned by name in. It actually comes from the Starfleet Charter, Article 14, Section 31, which allows for extraordinary measures to be taken in times of extreme threat. So that's what their sort of Black Ops mission's all about. Let's see, it was in Deep Space Nine. What else was it mentioned? Some of the movies it was in as well. It's mentioned in Julian Bashir's. They tried to get Dr. Bashir to join Section 31 at one point in Deep Space Nine, and I think they mentioned it was also in the Enterprise series, but not by name. So there you go. Anything else about Section 31? Did you guys have a chance to look at this?
No, I didn't get a chance to read that one yet. I do remember it from the DS9 episode, and I do remember it from Enterprise. I do remember it being sort of referenced that it was a thing prior to Discovery, but not like, I remember them being the sort of the CIA of the Starfleet. But clearly, we're going to get a little deeper with it on Discovery here. And
I think it was like a second or third episode of this series of Star Trek Discovery. We saw a guy with a black comm badge, and that was pretty much all they sort of mentioned about it. It was at the end of one episode in the first season. All right. Okay, so we're on to the main part of the show, which is why we're here, folks, to talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Discovery, Saints of Imperfection, I believe is the title, right? So, why don't you give us a sort of a semi-rundown there, Jaime?
Yeah, the Netflix description of this episode would probably be Tilly is trapped in the mycelial network, and Michael Burnham and Stamets race to try to, recover her. I guess, spoilers, like that's probably the one you would see in the trailer. If you've seen the episode, you have a lot. So I'm gonna use Jonathan's term here from our show notes, the mushroom. Last episode had the cocoon type thing that sucked in Tilly and apparently took her into the mycelial network, which reminded me an awful lot of the quantum realm from Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's sort of the vibe I got there.
Oh, right, yeah.
I got Avatar.
Stylistically.
I got the planet from Avatar with the things all glowing and everything. Right.
So there's definitely, you can imagine there what it looks like if you haven't seen. And it sort of starts out with, they're like, oh, look, we're catching up to Spock's shuttle. And, oh, what's he doing? He's trying to avoid us. Okay, they shoot at it to sort of disable the shuttle. And they say, all right, let's bring him on board. Whoops, it's not Spock. Dun, dun, dun. It's Empress Georgiou, who everybody except Pike is unaware that she is not retired Captain Georgiou, and she is now part of Section 31. So now we get to see, I don't know what he was, like a commander or captain?
I think they said Captain Leland, yeah.
Okay,
they called him Captain Leland, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's got his little, phone call to Pike. He's like, hey, guess what? You need to give my person back. This is not cool. You can't be be hanging on to them. Apparently, JoJo's real identity is known to Section 31. She has a little bit of a tense moment with Michael. This whole time, sort of on the second story, you have Stamets figuring out that Tilly was transported. And Tilly is also on like the third line of sort of like storyline here, where she's with the mushroom and they're like, oh, this is where we live. We, just like, normal everyday mushrooms, we break down matter and decompose it, and that's how the cycle of life continues. But there's this monster thing that is disrupting our way of life, and you guys, you being the disco crew, and Stamets in particular, you puncture this hole into our realm, and you are the ones who are causing us to die here. So you need to, solve this. Meanwhile, JoJo sort of goes on her merry way. Meanwhile, JoJo goes on her merry way. The Section 31 folks send over a liaison who, turns out to be Ash Tyler. Pike is like, what the hell is that all about? Why did you react that way when you saw him? Burnham says, I can tell you, but I can't tell you now. We just bear with me on this one.
I have to kill you.
And eventually, sorry?
I can tell you, but I have to kill you?
Yeah. Eventually, we get to like the main part of the meat of the episode where Stamets has figured out, like, okay, if we halfway jump into the mycelial network, so jump but without a destination, instead of crossing through for a few milliseconds or microseconds, forget what he says, and then popping on the other side, we can stay in there and like halfway there. So they
like a half a jump,
they like move everybody to the port side,
yeah,
or the starboard side, I guess. Now that I think about it, the orientation of the show,
yep.
And they need to make sure they don't touch the like half realm of the mycelial network, because they'll end up all twisted like the people on the Gresham. I forgot what the other ship was that was a sister ship at Discovery, where people were all torn up in that like, first episode.
No, it was the one from the first season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the other experimental ship where they went and they saw all these twisted bodies.
Yeah.
Right. And so, okay, so the funny moment of, hey, let's use the disco as a doorstop to jam open the doorway and let you've got an hour, because the mycelial network spores are going to start eating away at the hull of the Discovery, and we won't be able to survive anymore.
Interesting that the second time they said you have an hour to do this, right? Like, you were talking a couple of episodes about, how they have to solve all their problems in 40 minutes or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just like look at the countdown timer for how much time is left in the episode and use that.
It's like 24.
You have 24 minutes left. Actually, rather quickly, the Stamets Burnham crew end up reconnecting with Tilly in the mushroom. Turns out that they've discovered where the monster is, and the mushroom is like very unhappy. He's like, you need to kill it because it's hurting us. And dun dun dun, it's Dr. Culber, who looks like he's not doing so well. And apparently it turns out that he's been using this like leaf or bark, I forget what they said, some sort of organic material to coat himself in like a little like bit of armor, because the spores are trying to do their thing to decompose him, and it burns every time they touch him. But that material that he's using hurts them. And so that's why the mushroom was very mad. And so there's a little bit of a moment where Tilly and the mushroom have to have like a heart-to-heart of like, hey, don't kill this dude. The dude is very important to us. And there's more drama when they try to escape out of the network and realize that it looks like Stamets and Culber can't be reunited, because Culber can't exist outside of the network, because the way he got there anyway was sort of weird. Remember back to season 1 when I forget exactly what happened to cause Stamets to be sort of drifting in and out of lucidity and like become the focus point of the network. That's when he finds Culber, who had just been killed by Ash Tyler / Voke, and he, in retrospect, had kissed him, and that material had somehow been pulled in through that sort of nexus into the mycelial network. So that's how Culber is alive in any sort of way, but it's almost like a transporter reconstruction sort of thing, like the typical transporter. And eventually they figure, all right, so you have this cocoon thing that you use to get to there. Can we use his human DNA to reconstitute him, the missing piece that you don't have in your realm, and send him back through the cocoon? And ultimately that's what they end up doing. I totally missed the fact that meanwhile the Discovery was sort of a sinking ship sort of sliding into the network, so everybody sort of has to move away from the scary blue wall of doom.
Yeah, move over to port this time, right?
Yeah. And the section, Tyler uses his nifty little comm badge to call to a Section 31 ship and be like, yo, you need to tow us out of this or keep us stable from going into it. And he does. It's kind of a cool little hologram cloaking device type thing. The ship opens up. It looks, to my eyes, looks a whole lot like the Romulan bird of prey, I think they called it.
Mm-hmm.
that had sort of that styling.
I wonder if it's a stolen ship. That would popped into my head too. I wonder, because it's cloaked, right? I wonder if they stole a Romulan ship.
Oh, true. Yeah. It was disguised as a big meteor or something like that, right?
Yeah. It looked like an asteroid or a meteor or something. Sorry, Hammy, didn't mean to derail you there, but
no. We just watched this, so my notes are sort of all over the place.
We just watched it too.
There's drama around, trying to use the tractor beams to hold the Discovery in place is going to blow up our ship, so we're going to cut it loose. And Giorgio's like, nope, we're going to do this other thing that will give us a little bit more time. And I'm going to use this knowledge I have about you because I hacked into your Facebook profile. Yeah. And so I know that you're guilty of this thing that you said is not provable. Convinces Leyland, all right, let's go ahead and give them more time. People make it through. Culber is sort of reborn through the cocoon, reconstituted. Pike is like, dude, what the heck? Tyler, you stay here. I'm going to go to the other ship and chew out Leland. And who should show up there but Admiral Cornwell, who's like, hey, guess what? You two need to work together to solve this problem because there's weird special things about this red signals thing where we have detected tachyon traces, which Leland says, oh, that could be cloaking. And Pike says, oh, that could be time travel related. And so they're both sort of like going to have to work together where each has sort of acknowledged that, yep, I'm trying to stay on the pure path and it's more clear to me, but recognize that there are less clear paths and dirty things that might have to be done for the better good. So I imagine we'll see some conflict between these two characters in subsequent episodes. And we cap it off with Giorgio sending a hologram call to Michael Burnham, and really boils down to the scorpion to the frog type discussion where Giorgio is like, yo, I'm totally not going to kill Spock. I just need to make sure I find him before all the other people who want to kill him do. And Burnham does not seem convinced that referencing the fable of the scorpion who wants a frog to take them across the river. Spoilers, the frog dies because the scorpion stings the frog. And the frog says, why did you do that? That's totally dumb. We're both going to die. He's like, well, I really can't change this being the scorpion. I can't change who I am and my nature. And that's pretty much where we leave off for this week.
Yep. The only other thing to add is that Ash got assigned to the Discovery 2 permanently or more regularly now. So we're sort of back to where we were midway through season 1 with Culber back on the ship, Ash back on the ship. It's like the gang's all there.
Wow, I missed that part. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically Leland says, you're gonna keep Ash on your ship, so Ash is staying aboard. So just to make things extra awkward, they'll have Burnham's ex-lover / the secret double agent who killed Culber in the first season, just to mix things up as that all comes back together.
Sure. And just as a sort of counterpoint to this, I was watching a video interview with Wilson Cruz talking about Star Trek Discovery and about his coming back. This was actually it was released 3 days ago, which I thought was kind of like spoilers. Yeah. But so he talks about this. You've got it in your notes here about resurrector gaze. But he's what he likes to call himself an actorvist, where he because he's obviously a gay actor or gay person in real life. He talks about how there's a bury your gaze trope that's in films and things like that, and like the last few seasons for the last few years, there's been a lot of massacred LGBT characters, especially women characters. They seem to be expendable, right? Mm-hmm. And he talks in it's a half an hour long. I only watched about 10 minutes of it, but he said the whole point of they seem to be the easiest people to kill is what he said in the story. But so in that whole thing, they kept when he was initially to leave the show to be killed by Ash, he was told that he'll be back next week. So cool your jets. You're not gone yet. And then so they brought him back for like a snippet in the episode after that, and then he was told he would be coming back in some shape in season 2, but they hadn't figured out how yet. So I guess to try and placate his sense of victimization. But then again, he did understand that. He said that his character was actually the Hugh character was actually in service of Paul Stamets' character, right? So it wasn't that Culber necessarily was to be a long-term character on the show, but more to sort of act as a support for Paul Stamets' character, right? So Anthony Rapp, to support Anthony Rapp's character. So interesting. So if you're interested in sort of figuring out what was going on with Wilson Cruz, check out this video. I'll have a link in the show notes for you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that character evolves. I mean, we talked last week about sort of, where some of these characters are now. I mean, obviously, Ash having sort of, having to leave Kronos and leave his lover and his baby behind, with the monks, and what that's going to do for his character. We talked about what that's going to mean, what happened last week with Saru, his evolution of losing his ganglia, and what that's going to mean for that character. And now we've got this sort of, the trauma that had really gotten to Stamets. Stamets at the beginning of the season was talking about leaving Discovery and taking another job, and now obviously his circumstances changed, having his husband back, so that changes that character's arc. And so we've got some interesting sort of futures set up for these different characters and where they can go with them next. It's interesting the way they continue to push and evolve these characters. All things being equal, again, it's been a pretty short amount of time that we've known these characters, but they've all sort of come a long way. It's kind of a real testament to the writers and the actors who are performing so well that they can change the status quo. They make us invest very quickly and then change the status quo and bring us these new things in a fairly tight order, and it's quite compelling. It's well done. Yeah,
and it's interesting that they don't go through the whole sort of, like, if you had just watched the show, if this was the first episode you'd watched and Giorgio just showed up, you'd be like Christopher Pike. You wouldn't know what the backstory was and why other people are so suspicious of her, and why, like, for instance, Michael Burnham takes a second or two to drop her phaser when they're pointing at the shuttle, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course at some point she's going to have this longer conversation, as she calls it, with Christopher Pike about the reality behind Ash and Giorgio, right? So yeah, interesting. But is it cool that Ash has this next generation com badge, and Christopher Pike goes, "What the heck is that?" The tap to control com badge. That's pretty good. Yeah. What kind of com badge is that? Yeah, where'd you get that thing? Yeah, exactly. Is that the new Japanese cell phone? Yeah. So here we are past episode 5 now. Still no Spock. Right. So spoilers. I went to IMDb I was doing some research for the show last week, and they have little. So don't do this if you don't want to be spoiled. But they have little pictures, like, to sort of for each, like sort of a highlight picture for each of the postings. And there's a picture of Spock later on. That's all I'm going to say. So clearly he does appear in character at some point in the future, but it's not this episode. It's a few episodes out still. So that's my prediction. They're going to drag this along. And again, you see last week I talked about the fact that every time a transporter, you can see the glow happen, and you're waiting for the reveal of who it is. I'm expecting to be Spock, and last week it was number 1, and then of course this time they capture the shuttle and the door opens and it's Giorgio, not Spock, right? So they're stringing us along here. Yeah, you almost feel like you're being trolled a little bit. Yeah, well, I think we are. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. You have tune in next week. It's kind of the old Batman thing. Next same bat time, same bat channel. We assure you, Spock is coming. Exactly. Yeah. waiting for Godot was what this thing is. Yeah, that's right. Waiting for Spock. Yeah. But it's good. I think beyond whatever lasting effects this has on Tilly, and her connection with May, the base room, they obviously feel like they created this very strong bond, having been literally inside of one another. That's kind of weird. But this feels like it's sort of the wrap up of this sort of arc that's been going on for the first few episodes of the mycelial network, the what's going on. It was tied in with Stamets, it's tied into Tilly. It feels like that sort of wrapped up in a nice little bow now. Obviously we're going to get the fallout of that with Culber being back on the ship and that, but it feels like we're sort of ready to start a new phase of the season with the next episode, because that had sort of been the lingering thing for the last few episodes, right? Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do think they're setting things up sort of longer term, because a lot of folks, just to mention online, are like not super happy with, like, hey, the spore drive and the sort of being out in the open for Section 31 versus the way that Section 31 and Sloan were in particular were sort of presented in Deep Space Nine. I'm speculating here that they've sort of given us the hint here with the Jasep, mushrooms living in the mycelial network realm, that will be sort of the, like, ethical impetus to shut off access to the mycelial network. Yeah. At least in terms of jumping, and like, okay, well, this is why, Voyager couldn't just use a spore drive, or the Defiant couldn't get its whole fleet of buddies with spore drives, drop in front of the Dominion homeworld, blow it up, and then be back home in time for tea, right?
Yeah.
I also think that Section 31 being slightly more out in the open here, I could 100% foresee that some big sort of political thing is going to happen, and officially it no longer exists. And then it's like, nope, actually there's still a little line item in the budget here for you all, and then you'll be back in the shadows sort of thing. I think that's how they'll reconcile these different sort of threads that don't map neatly to sort of established canon.
Yeah. I mean, we missed your perspective on the last episode. We did our twofer episode in episode 33 of Spotcast. What's your overall take on the last sort of 3 episodes as a whole?
Let's see here. An obol or obol, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, for Charon.
Obol for Charon, yeah.
Yeah, referencing the coin, I think, that you give Charon to get across the river Styx for the land of the dead. Reminding myself what ended up happening here. Look at my notes. Oh, that's right. That's when everything goes wrong with the computer system, and they can't even speak to each other properly because Universal Translator is translating their language into all sorts of weird, wacky things that they don't understand.
Yep.
And they look out that Saru had the premium subscription to Duolingo.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
And was an overachiever given his status as the singular member of his pre-warp society. I thought that was... I wrote here that Saru had the meat sweats. I had to mention that. I guess he wasn't feeling well as they were sort of figuring out the entity thing and how it was trying to communicate with them. I thought it was... I think the note that I wrote to myself was it was a blend of styles. So we talked about, I think it was episode 2, that was the Jonathan Frakes episode, that was very much an old school Star Trek The Next Generation style, very Trek sort of episode. And we've had other episodes that are more in line with the fast-paced, go, action-heavy Discovery style. And I think the prior episode was kind of a blend of two. You had they have to use some logic, some science, some sort of, figuring out and being explorers to ultimately resolve the problem. But it did also have the go, oh my gosh, Saru extra melodrama. He's going to die because this thing has triggered his Vaharai. What do they call it?
Oh yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, use this knife that I stole from my sister as a memento. Use this to cut off my ganglia and end my madness. And now he is a different character, hypothetically, right? He won't be driven by fear, and he knows that his society's viewpoint on their life cycle is based on lies. And I guess spoilers for the next episode. I don't know if you guys watched the trailer for episode 6, but it looks like we're going to see exactly how that plays out in terms of the Baul and Kelpian interplay and interaction between those two societies. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. It had some funny stuff, like when they started speaking Klingon to each other and didn't have a clue. Hey, our console's in Arabic. I don't read Arabic. What's going on here? Yeah,
and the banter between Stamets and Tignataro's Jet Reno was pretty fun too. That was this whole sort of science versus faith, right?
Right, and that's right, and that's a good point, because Jet Reno's like, what's with this fancy pants spore drive thing? Like, good old dilithium always works, right? Sort of engineer perspective. And Stamets was like, no. Like, do you know how non-green it is and how many planets have been destroyed by dilithium mining? And spores are clean. They are the renewable energy version. And I think that's where they really set it up for sort of the tail end of that episode and the beginning, middle of this episode of like, maybe it's not as clean as they thought. And maybe they shouldn't be using this spore drive thing. Even though they had, good intentions for science and doing cool things, there were unintended consequences that they were impacting this other set of life that they didn't know about.
Yeah. All right. Now I give you the ultimate task. Defend the last episode of Orville.
So that would be...
a happy refrain. Episode 6 was the last one. So there's a new episode tonight.
The Orville the Bachelor episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so I definitely disagree. Differ. Not even disagree. Differ in opinion on the Orville versus my colleagues here on the show.
So is the Doctor flying solo in that episode?
That's a good question. That is a question that philosophers will talk about for the end of time. about we talked about Yaphet and, the space kissing stuff and the implications of that. I think the robo kissing here, for lack of or android kissing. Well, he's not really an android, is he? I guess robo kissing here.
He's from a planet of mechanical. Like, that's the thing. He's not just a robot.
Yeah, he's a
like
mechanical
Data.
life form, right?
Yeah, but he comes from a planet of mechanical life forms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an episode that if you saw the TNG episode where Data, has a very short-lived relationship with one of his crewmates, it starts there. No, not that particular relationship. I mean there
was one where he had an actual relationship with a crewmate later on. It's like season 3 or 4 or 5 or something.
He's dating her or something.
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Going to Geordie for advice. I saw bits of that. Yeah.
Right, and that one was done more in an academic and philosophical way, and this was more of with the theme of the Orville, where it's sort of imagine they were blue collar folks in a typical 9-to-5 job, and people sort of reacted that way. So even I liked the twist, the bit of innovation on top that Isaac was like, oh, I'm looking at this purely for Data, and he ends the relationship like the minute after they have made robo love there, and says, yep, I've got all the data I need. I'm done here, right? And everybody sort of knew that could be a possibility. Like, hey, he literally cannot love. This is probably not the best partner. Even though some time ago I mentioned, like, hey, remember that Terminator thing I said about, from Terminator 2, like the Terminator was like the best option as a father for John Connor. I kind of got that sort of vibe for, hey, Dr. Finn has struggled. She's a single parent. Isaac is great with her kids, if only in sort of a tactile sort of way. And in my mind, I felt like they did a pretty good job of showing like how everybody else would react to that sort of thing happening, in a more of a like, oh my gosh, we can't wait to tell our crewmates what the hell. Gordon and Lamar were like running, trying to beat each other to the bridge just to like tell the company gossip sort of thing. Yeah, and there are just some moments like when they tried to get Isaac to, or Isaac's like, oh, how do I break this off, properly? Like, oh, okay, well, make the other person not want to be with you. And there's Isaac and his tank top and tidy whities with beer, being the most like
a wife beater, don't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. In the most obnoxious sort of like stereotype of here's all these things that couples would really talk about and argue about, but in this weird robotic sense of like, she's like, excuse me, like, as I am incapable of stuttering, I can only surmise that you heard me. Right?
Yeah, I love that line.
I love that. It was such a memeable episode that I maybe give it more of a pass than like looking at it from a critical analysis standpoint. I'm not going to be like defend it as being more than the ultra calorie chocolate cake. It's not maybe good for you. I think if you enjoy that sort of thing, you're going to enjoy it. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm sorry you individuals you poor folks had to suffer through that without me giving my perspective on it. But that's the best I can do.
Probably given it about 10 more minutes than we gave it.
Yeah, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about it, good or bad. We just decided that it was best to move on and go from there. But
go on with our lives. Yep.
Yeah. Again, the show continues to baffle. Like it has funny moments, and then it tries to be earnest. It's not really pulling off earnest for me. And again, one of the challenges we face, we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about Discovery earlier. Like, I really am starting to enjoy these characters and who they are and the depth and the nuance and stuff like that. I don't like, who is your favorite character on that show? And if so, do you have them like a rank of like, oh, it's really tough because I like this person, I also like this person, like
on Orville?
On the Orville. Like
probably Kelly and the redhead guy.
Oh, Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah, he's funny.
Gordon's the easy one. He gets the best lines. So okay, that's fair. But I mean, they did
Bortus I could live without.
They did 2 episodes on Bortus. They were not great. Kelly, I just
find I could care less about.
The Doctor, I'm not a big fan of, but I also am not a huge fan of Penny Johnson as a performer. I would like to say I like Kelly more, but I don't feel like she's a very realized character. She doesn't seem to have a lot of depth to her.
Right, yeah.
They really haven't done a great job of fleshing her out, which is kind of a shame because I really enjoyed her as an actress on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, for sure. I find the captain is, in my opinion, he's very questionable. Like, he doesn't strike me as the things he says and does as someone, his behavior is not befitting I'm not, it's not Starfleet, but a Starfleet captain kind of character, right?
Yeah.
You know,
and then like Lamar, they sort of shunted him down to the engine room to be Geordie LaForge, and he's sort of, he gets some good lines, but again, he's not really a very realized character. Like, I just feel like the whole thing, my whole issue with the whole show is that it all seems very superficial. It's like a veneer of Star Trek, not Star Trek.
So here's my question to you, right? If Star Trek Discovery was not on right now, what would you think about the Orville? Like, I mean, if it wasn't a thing, if there was a universe where Star Trek Discovery didn't exist and you just had the Orville, and thinking and keeping in mind this is Seth MacFarlane, and he's like, you know, did the How to Die in the West, and he's done, you know, Family Guy and American Dad, you know.
I think I would still have had the 25 years since Star Trek Next Generation to reflect on. You know, we've had Battlestar Galactica, we've had great sci-fi series over the last 20 plus years. Even Star Trek evolved from TNG. I think it's just awfully hard to go back. You know, it's hard to go back in that earnest way. Like, Lost in Space is not the same as Lost in Space was, you know, 40, 50 years ago. It's hard to go back to that sort of, again, we talked about the galactification of some of these things where, you know, like they go too dark, and there was a lot of criticism of the first season of Discovery for being too dark after, you know, people love the hopefulness of Star Trek. That's one of the reasons I like Star Trek as a world, a realized, you know, galaxy of characters, is it's built on the idea that we get past what we are now. We get over our biases to a certain extent. We bond together, we go out, we explore, we try and do better, we try and reach for new things. It's filled with the wonder that some shows like Galactica clearly was not filled with wonder. You know, I like that about Star Trek, and there was some of that missing during the first season of Discovery, and I feel like this season sort of has found a little bit better of a balance between that maturity of science fiction storytelling of something like Galactica and tied into that wonder of Trek. I think that's the fine line that they're walking this season, and I think they're doing a good job. Orville, I don't think has really got the depth one way or the other. It's all wonder with no substance.
Yeah, that's the chocolate cake thing, or as the giant Costco, you know, 12-pack box of Kraft mac and cheese. It's warm and inviting, you know, people.
It is. It's very digestible. It's extremely digestible. Yeah. Like it doesn't challenge you in any way. It doesn't really provoke you. Again, it's not. But the thing is, it isn't what it's not funny enough to be a funny show. It's not smart enough to be a smart show. It's not edgy enough to be an edgy show. It's not certainly well not acted enough to be a really compelling character show. Like, it just feels like it's just short on every checkmark box.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how to go on that. I think you had mentioned one or two, maybe a few episodes ago, that it probably would have been better served, funny enough, because we were talking about streaming services as a streaming sort of thing where they could go harder edged on one or the other, right? Mm-hmm. Bigger budget and make it more, you know, Star Trek Discovery, or all right, we're going to go straight up, you know, harder edge comedy that is stuff you wouldn't normally be able to show on Fox on a over the air network. Yeah,
it's you know, I think especially when you compare this to something like Million Ways to Die in the West, you know, that was, I mean, it certainly wasn't Blazing Saddles, but it was a good comedy western because MacFarlane was just being, you know, crazy and goofy. But they also stacked that with good actors like Charlize Theron's in that, and, you know, like Liam Neeson, and there's some heft to it as well. But it's also, you know, it's meant to be funny, and it just sort of leans into it and does what it does, and it works. Again, it's not high art, but it's funny. This one, it just can't seem to pick a lane. You know, there are times where I'm like, and there are times where I'm like groaning because it's just like, this is not doing it for me on a, like, the sci-fi stories are very, very familiar. They're not really taking me new places. You know, I feel like I want something more to happen, and I can't figure out what that ingredient is, but it's just not there yet. And again, I say that having said, I really enjoyed the first season for the most part. I feel like it's just the second season that just really hasn't found its footing yet. I think I was looking for more like what we've got with Discovery, more growth, better realization of the characters, some evolution of the larger world that they live in outside of just the day-to-day 9 to 5 on the ship stuff. It just feels like it's a small slice of a small show with a fairly limited cast that I just haven't fallen in love with yet. Which again, I'm gonna keep with it for a little while longer and sort of see where maybe there's still some rabbits to pull out of the hat. But it's just disappointing because I feel like there was some promise and it doesn't feel like it's really found its footing for me.
Yeah, I'm amazed that they spend as much money as they did on the CGI and the special effects and stuff like that, and yet the writing it's kind of akin to what we expect from George Lucas. It's hard to take as dialogue and that kind of stuff, just the storylines. Yeah, well, let's see how it plays out over the next little while. But shall we move on to the watch list?
Yes, indeed.
All righty, the watch list. Well, I'll go first. I got a couple of quick ones here. I keep forgetting to mention, of course, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which is, if you follow Terry Gilliam at all as a director, you'll know that, I don't know, maybe 20 years he's been trying to make this Don Quixote movie. In fact, there was a movie about the making of the Don Quixote movie and how it lost a big chunk of money and ended up being shelved. Well, it's now actually been completed and it's making its way across Europe and playing in different places. I'm not sure. It's supposed to come to North America. I don't know if that means like the last movie that he did, which I've not forgotten the name of, but it actually only played in the theater. It actually was going to go straight to DVD and Blu-ray. It did play one night in a theater here in Toronto, and I made my way down to watch it because he's one of my favorite directors. But what was that other movie that he just did?
Yeah, because I remember I watched that on Blu-ray. That was the one because
I lent it to you.
Yeah. Zero Theorem.
Oh, the Zero Theorem. Yeah, his last movie, the Zero Theorem. I saw that in the
that was
theater.
Good. It was interesting. It was It was pretty weird. Christoph Waltz was the star of that, and he was good.
Right. Yeah.
It was very Terry Gilliam. It was very weird. Weird costumes, weird sets, weird characters, but certainly like an enjoyable watch. Again, I like his vision, I think.
But he wasn't a writer of it, though. He was just the director. Whereas the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which is the movie he was making when Heath Ledger left us all. He also wrote Tideland, which is a weird one from before, where Jeff Bridges. I'm not sure if it really is Jeff Bridges, but he gets taxidermied in halfway through the movie, and so he's just sitting on the couch for the story. So good stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm looking forward to that when it comes out in any shape or form. If it does play in a theater, I will try and make my way down to watch it on the big screen. Another one. We were talking about online services here in Canada. The other one we have is Prime Video, which we didn't talk about. Jonathan, we were talking about Netflix and whatever.
Yep.
So Prime Video for me is a bit of a hassle because I have to go over and change boxes or whatever, and so I started. Of course, I watched the Emmys a couple of weeks ago, and the Marvelous Miss Maisel won 5 Emmys, like for best comedy series, the best actress, and a whole bunch of costumes and directing. It's set in the late 50s, 57, 58, 59 kind of era. She's a stand-up comic, and of course there's a guy who plays Lenny Bruce in the story as well. It's really, really good. It's really funny. It's a bit of a stretch in terms of her routine, but then again, I didn't really listen to comics back then and who played Blue, and they talk about people like Red Fox and stuff like that. But it's sort of a imagined story. She's from the Upper West Side. She's a Jewish family. The family's hilarious. Tony Shalhoub is her father. And the mother is the lady from 2.5 Men who was married to John Cryer's character. She plays the mother. And it's hilarious. And of course, Kevin Pollak is her father-in-law. I'm not going to go into too much of the story, but the costuming is amazing. The way they made New York look like that era, the cars, how bars were. So I like I said before, I don't often binge shows, but this one I pretty much binged over like maybe 4 or 5 nights. And disappointingly, I had to download the season 2 for some reason wouldn't play on my Apple TV or on my television. I had to actually watch that first couple of episodes on my computer. For some reason, something about bandwidth, it wouldn't play. But I definitely recommend if you have the time, take a look at the Marvelous Miss Maisel. I think it's going to be an interesting show. We'll see how many seasons it goes into. But if I know, Jonathan, you're into stand-up comedy, and it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts on it if you get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, that one's been on my radar for a while. One of the podcasts I enjoy is called The Watch, and The Watch is a huge supporter of that show and has been touting it for quite a while. So it's always been sort of on my to-do list. But again, I think as evidenced by our conversation earlier, I tend to just let Amazon Prime slip out of my mind. They also have some other shows like American American Gods I've been meaning to catch up on, and some other
is that
stuff.
on already? Oh, yeah, right.
Season 1's already done. Season 2's coming to that later this year, but that's another one where, again, it's on Amazon Prime. It's right there. Man in the High Castle is there. There's a few shows that are very well regarded from Amazon Studios, but I just haven't.
Where's the Good Omens going to show up?
That's a good question. I can't recall which service is going to have Good Omens.
Yeah, that's another one that should be on the watch list for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So for my watch list this week, I have a couple of things. So tomorrow in our time, the 15th of February, we're going to get The Umbrella Academy is going to drop on Netflix, the entire first season. Umbrella Academy, I think we talked about it a few episodes back when they announced it was coming and showed us a trailer, is based on a Dark Horse comic written by Gerard Way, the lead singer of My Chemical Romance. It is really cool sort of spin on that whole, special group of kids, raised by a, headmaster at a school to try and help them, meet their abilities in that. But it's also it sort of tells two storylines. It tells one in the past about them as children and then one of them as adults now. So it's almost a little like It in that way. So you sort of see how what happens as a child affects what they're like as adults. And lots of really interesting characters. It's a sort of a weird and dark and moody book. So I'm really curious to see how that translates to TV, particularly on Netflix, where they can push the envelope a little bit and be a little more edgy. So that's definitely, I made a point of finishing up all my previous engagements to make sure that I have time this weekend to sit down and start watching that. And I can say that because what I did this week was binge Russian Doll. We talked about that. I teased that as my watch for last week. So I got lucky. I got a lucky break. My beautiful wife did not want to watch Russian Doll with me. So I got to binge it over the course of a few days. It's 8 episodes and they're only about 25, 26 minutes a piece. So it's a pretty easy binge. I watched it over the course of a few nights. We talked about it last episode. It's kind of Groundhog's Day-ish. The idea is that basically you're living the same experience over and over again. Natasha Lyonne plays the lead character. She is basically dying over and over again. And every time she dies, she resets herself back at the moment, at this moment that happens to be at her birthday party. And then she has to go back and sort of retrace how does she get out of this without dying in another weird and uncomfortable way. And
not to be confused with the movie that's in the theaters right now, which is a similar plot line, right?
Yeah. Oh, what's a Happy Death Day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one, it's funny because I saw the trailer for it and I had sort of envisioned it as, it says, in the trailer, it's created in part by Natasha Lyonne herself and by Amy Poehler. So I was immediately thinking, okay, comedy. And the trailer does sort of play up the sort of goofy aspects of the ways that she dies in the first little bit of the series. But it actually, it's weird. It's kind of Black Mirror-y, Twilight Zone-y at times. It actually goes a little bit edgy, dark, weird as the series progresses. I would recommend as a science fiction podcast. It definitely does transform. It's got a lot of sort of sci-fi sort of overtones to it. So it definitely fits our audience's appetites. So I would definitely recommend it. As I say, it's pretty brief. You can watch the whole thing in like 3 hours. And they do a really good job, and they're pretty well set up to do another season of it too. So it's got potential to sort of really go some interesting places. So I would say check that one out if you're keen.
So they're half-hour episodes or something, or
yeah, it's 8 episodes, half an hour, not even a half-hour piece. I think they're like 24, 25 minutes. So again, it's a pretty brisk binge watch. And the other thing that we got today was the trailer went up today for the first season of the Doom Patrol series, and the Doom Patrol series is going to be airing on the WB DC Comics app that is only available in the United States. Thank you very much. Still no word where it's going to come here, although considering Titans, which is also an exclusive for that app in the United States, is now on Netflix here in Canada. I can only hope that at some point we're going to, in the not distant future, get Doom Patrol. We got Titans probably about maybe a couple months, maybe 6 weeks after it finished airing in the States. So maybe we'll get that there. The new trailer is about 4 or 5 minutes long, and it really starts to have a good hard look at what Doom Patrol is. One of my favorite comic books from years gone by. Sort of an even weirder take on the X-Men. Again, it's the whole band band of misfits. Somebody helps to support them. They go and solve these very sort of weird side of the DC Universe crimes. And so we get a really good look this time at who the characters are and what their abilities are in this trailer. And I really hope that that's coming to Canada in the not distant future, because always one of my favorites, and really, really keen to see what that whole series is like.
I have something that normally would not have been on my list. I have seen, probably like flicking through the different title cards on Netflix, I had seen this Christine McConnell's, what is her show called? The Curious Creations of Christine McConnell. And I thought, oh, okay, it's like a baking thing. She does, spooky kind of really good art with the baked creations. Where it caught my attention is she recently did a cross promotion with the folks for Mortal Kombat 11, the video game that came out not so long ago, and I was blown away by the different treats that she did here. I think the one that is probably the title card of this particular article was the old school Mortal Kombat, like a cake, like shaped like the old school Mortal Kombat arcade cabinet with a Raiden the Thunder God bursting out of it, and looking through, you could see these dragon cookies that she did with the Mortal Kombat dragon logo, and Sub-Zero in this wintry gingerbread cookie theme, and it suddenly got me excited. Like, oh, I gotta go find that episode and at least watch that one, and maybe I'll end up watching the rest of that show if it ends up sticking with me. So if you're a fan of any of those things, of baking or art or creepy crawly things and or / Mortal Kombat the video game, I'd say go check that out.
Interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that's it for the week. So, hey, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as @JPKNews.
All right. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right. My name is Timitra, TIMMITRA, on most of the socials, but definitely on Twitter is the best way to get a hold of me. So until next week, or we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 If you want to find out more about the podcast or see episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter @Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount on patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find out details on how to help us out on our website at Spotcast/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
I don't know the layout of our three respective cities, but hypothetically there is some linear point where a gamma ray or neutrino or something could blow up at least two, possibly all three of our machines. So depending how much extra paranoia you want for
tonight's Trek episode is tachyons. The tachyons are going to do it.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was watching. Do you know who Professor Brian Cox is?
The name sounds familiar, but I'm grasping to remember.
He's a British guy. He's sort of taken over for Stephen Hawking in terms of being the science guy for the UK, right? And he's a young guy. He's like probably late 30s, early 40s, right? He's actually coming on tour. I'm going to go see him He's like a Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of guy, but a little younger, right? Like super knowledgeable, up on physics and all that kind of stuff. Well, he did this experiment where he went up into the hills, like up in the mountains or whatever, and he took like an aquarium with him, right? And he put, I think he put like a heating pad. It was like super cold. So he put it was either he put a heating pad underneath I think he put ice underneath the aquarium, right? Like a block of ice. And then he covered the aquarium with like black felt, right? And he put the can, and then he stuck his head underneath, and he put the camera in there, and you could see between the heat, the cold and the hot, you could see little particles shooting down right? Like little lines, like these little illuminated lines. And he said what those are they're like neutrinos. They're like little tiny microscopic, barely visible to the human eye kind of things. And it was kind of cool. And he says the theory is that the primordial ooze that was out there on the planet Earth, right? As the cell was splitting, or as the plant or whatever was growing, a neutrino went through and split the DNA and caused the DNA to mutate. And that is how they think life started on Earth. Dun, dun, dun.
Entirely possible. Could also wipe out our recordings, so that's why we have the redundancy.
I know where you're going with it, but you're right. It totally is possible that could happen, right? So, but I just thought it was like coolest. Like as soon as the light bulb went on for me immediately as soon as you told that story, right? But which is why I remember to tell people that. But I got to figure out what the heat and cold. But it was like totally a redoable experiment. It wasn't that complicated, right? But just the idea that a particle flying across the galaxy, just like the spore that went inside of Tilly, right? Traveling across the universe could have been what sparked the original mutation that started life on Earth. Dun, dun, dun. All right, enough about that. There you go. Another one.
Cool.
Oh, I got an emergency alert on my Peel Amber alert.
I know. I just got the same thing.
Huh. Age 11. Stolen by his father, I guess. Driving his silver Honda Civic. That's interesting.
Yeah. We get emergency alerts on our phones now.
Yeah.
Wait, now? You didn't get them before?
No, they just actually...
We've gotten them before, yeah.
Well, no, they've only done it... They've done a few tests for us, but they've only used it, I think, properly a few times now. Yeah, I guess, now that we have our neighbors to the south threatening nuclear war with everyone in sight, we should, they wanted to make sure the Canadians were also informed.
That's the Mexicans you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I was surprised last week because we did get cut off before the end of the episode. Tim and I were both ready to record. We were like, okay, neither of us knows what happened. So we found a online source that was available to help us watch the end of the episode. It was surprising how quickly somebody had posted that for viewing.
Oh, I see. Yeah, what happened in those couple minutes that you missed? I forget what the precise end of the episode was. So
so we got cut off right when the spores were being released in engineering, and Reno and Stamets were starting on their mushroom trip, and so it basically stopped with the two of them saying, "Hey, wait, what's going on?" And then it sort of stopped, and so the whole part where they drug themselves, come out of it, and realize that Tilly's gone was cut off. So it wasn't a lot, but it was like clearly that portion, right, was pretty valuable. So
yeah, that would be pretty rough having the Sopranos ending to an episode. Be like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah, exactly. Like it just fade to black. Like what? Yeah, because Tim sent a note saying, "Damn, it cut off the end of my episode," and I was watching it delayed because my wife and I were finishing watching a series before I started watching that. So I was watching a few minutes behind him on my PVR, and then I got to the end. I was like, "Damn, same thing happened to me."
Yeah.
Thanks, Rogers.
Thanks. We got Rogered.
Yes, you've been Rogered. Yeah.
It's tricky with this kind of thing because it's based on a thing like I suppose the same thing with more than just code, because we're always sort of right on the tail of what's going on, right? So.
Inevitably, Apple will do something or
amazing on
secretly release something like that night or the very next morning. It's so frustrating because I imagine if we moved the day, they would inevitably do the same thing as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because a lot of the sci-fi news, it seems like you don't get quite as much over that span too between Friday and Sunday. It seems to be a little less busy that way too. So you sort of get the week-long chance to recap some of the sci-fi news too, which is kind of good. There was a story today that broke that there was a rumor going around that Rian Johnson was not going to do his trilogy of Star Wars movies. And I was like, oh, crap, that's a thing. And then over the course of the day, eventually he came out on Twitter and said, nope, not true. This was just, a case of somebody getting some bad information. So I was like, oh, that's good. We don't have to talk about his name. But yeah, these things sort of creep up over the course of the day. You're like, do we need to talk about this?
It can be challenging. I default to just tossing it into the links. And then if it turns out by the time we go to record, all right, just never mind that one. That one became a non-issue.
Yeah.
Is better than trying to hang on to it in a separate place and then remember to bring it back in.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to bed. It's late
time.
Yep.
All right. Talk to you guys next week.
All right.
Talk to you later.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Ew, gotta get rid of this old Backstreet Boys t-shirt.
Tell me why
Because it stinks, boys.
Tell me why.
I've washed it so many times, but the odor won't come out.
Tell me why.
No, you tell me why I can't get rid of this odor.
Have you tried Downy Rinse and Refresh? It doesn't just cover up odors, it helps remove them.
Wow, it worked, guys.
Yeah.
Downy Rinse and Refresh removes more odor in one wash than the leading value detergent in 3 washes. Find it wherever you buy laundry products.